Welcome. Thank you once again for joining me today. I'm Guinness and Lola. So today I came across an article where it was talking about the intellectualization of emotions, and I was like, what the hell is that all about? Anyway, it sounded quite interesting. So I've got a bit of sort of discussion thought around that. Then we'll do some kind of movements, and then when we do the relaxation, I'll kind of return us back to this idea of intellectualization of emotions. It sounds probably far more heavy than it is. It's just the idea that perhaps we overthink how we feel, if that makes sense. And that's quite an important concept to perhaps not to think about, which is possibly the most confusing thing I've ever said. Don't think about how you think. Never mind. Anyway, so we will start by, as we always do, just coming into our current present space and place. So if you would like to get yourself into a comfortable position, Lola, stop destroying the toy. So if you just want to either sit cross-legged or they've just done the announcements for Christmas. Up to 3 households can meet between the 23rd and the 28th of December. Just flashed up on my screen.
Your video,
just so everyone knows, this was filmed during lockdown, so I've just done an announcement. Okay, so yeah, coming into a comfortable position, and just making sure as well that, you know, perhaps if you always sit cross-legged in that way, maybe today try sitting perhaps with one foot, I'll move my iPad, in front of the other, like this, maybe slightly different, or perhaps try crossing your legs the other way. The reason I'm saying this is because it might be a little bit more uncomfortable, and after a time you might want to shift back to your normal way of sitting, but sometimes it's quite a good process as well, just to help us take our awareness to our bodies by putting them in a slightly different arrangement to how we normally have them. So I know I always talk about comfort at this stage and kind of getting into a nice comfortable position, but I think there is also something about exploring that comfort, exploring what we assume to be comfortable versus what we don't. So just coming into position and then just casting your gaze down or closing your eyes, and just taking your attention now to the parts of the body that make contact with the ground. So just bringing your awareness to the parts of the body in contact with the ground, or with whatever you're sitting on. You might not be sitting on the ground. So just becoming very aware of the space that you occupy, almost as if you're drawing a kind of line around the place that you are in, both on the floor and then around the rest of your body, as if you can almost, I'm very sorry, I just got distracted, but Guinness and Lola are fighting in front of me. This is a very serious this is very serious business. And they've decided to add in some entertainment. Right, sorry. So yes, so going back to just drawing a line around your body, both the place it occupies on the ground and almost the place it comes in contact with the air. And in doing this, you should, hang on, I use the word should. I'm coming back to our last should practice. I don't want to use that word. Perhaps there might be more of an awareness from yourself as to the space place and time that you are in. And there might not be, but it's an opportunity to see how it feels. And so now we'll just turn our attention to our breath. So just at first, just noticing it. Almost as if you're sitting alongside it as an observer. Just noticing how your breath is going in and coming out today. Just noticing and giving it that time and space to be as it wants to be. And then the invitation is here that if it feels like there is a change that you would like to make to it, then the invitation is to make that change. But again, focus on the feeling as opposed to the mental connection of thinking you need to make a change. And if you don't need to make a change, there's no feeling that comes up that says you need to change that, then you don't need to. Just attune your breath to your emotion. And as I was talking about earlier, today's practice is perhaps something about thinking how we overthink. This is going to be a very confusing practice. So I found an article on the internet by somebody called Nick Wignall, but there's quite a lot out there if you want to just Google the intellectualization of emotions. And the first question it talks about is, when was the last time you said out loud, I feel sad, or I'm angry? And the challenge is to think about how we dress up emotional language to describe how we feel. And so instead of saying, I feel sad, we'll often say, I'm upset, or I'm really worried. And then that makes us think about are these words we're using, are they making us think that we're communicating about how we feel, when in reality, we're doing exactly the opposite. We're sort of sugarcoating how we feel, we're hiding how we feel by using these words, these more intellectual words. So perhaps now is an opportunity to taking our awareness to our bodies and just scanning for both physical and emotional sensations. And just seeing if any words come up. And then looking at these words and just in your own conversation in your head, and it could be they're positive words. There's nothing, this doesn't have to be about negative emotions by any means. But for example, if we're talking about anger, we often will say, I'm upset, or I'm just sick of something, or I'm a little upset, or something that kind of just takes out some of the emotion. So it's a very subtle difference. But what we're doing is almost disconnecting from that raw sense of emotion, the power that comes from emotion, and in fact substituting it for something that becomes a little bit more abstract and intellectualized. And my intention here is not to go into why and how this has happened. This isn't a kind of psychological inquiry into the use of language or family development or communication styles. It's just something to reflect on. And the reflection is really an opportunity to think about if we are genuinely conveying to ourselves as well as others how we feel. And I don't mean that in a way that we should be going around shouting about how we feel to everybody. I think there is something about that sense of societal function that requires us to perhaps sometimes sugarcoat our emotions, because it just makes society work. But is our self-talk particularly something that we are downplaying about how we feel? And so perhaps now focusing on any emotion that you're feeling, I want you to turn that into some form of affirmation, as we've done before. So turn it into something that is perhaps I feel, and just really think about the word that you are using to express that emotion. And try and use the word about that emotion that perhaps you feel has the most power or impact, that perhaps you don't necessarily like to use that word for that emotion. And I just want you to hold on to that affirmation and use that connection to that emotion, whatever that emotion is, through the practice. And we're just going to do some movement that focuses on some perhaps more emotional kind of release, detox, that kind of stuff. And so I want you to positively embrace that sense of emotion as we practice. Whether you feel it's a negative emotion or a positive emotion, I want you to positively embrace that feeling and allow that feeling to develop in your body, knowing that it's a temporary space for you at the moment, and that by the end of the session we will come back to a place where we are more perhaps emotionally contained. So if we just begin by our rotation around the spine, so just that gradual circling of the spine. And as you do this, I want you to just think about not only the rotation, but the connection you have with the earth as you make this rotation, the grounded nature of the rotation, the support of the earth. And it's something that when we feel particularly full of heightened emotion, the groundedness, the connection to the earth, however that comes, is something that continues to hold us, to keep us connected, when perhaps sometimes we feel like our emotions might take over. So just grounding through the earth. And when you feel ready, just reversing your circle. And perhaps this time, as you're going in the opposite direction, reconnecting to that sense of groundedness, and also the movement as it kind of rotates not only around that central point, but within the hips. And then when you're ready, coming onto your back. Start by bringing your right leg up, lifted up, and just begin to circle around that hip joint. And you can make it as small or as big as you like, that circle, whatever's comfortable. But just rotating the hip around that joint. And when you're ready, reversing it back the other way. You can support your leg, you don't have to do it freely. Just the important part of the movement here is that allowing that joint to work. And when you're ready on one side, you feel like you're done, just switching to the other and doing exactly the same. So one way and then the other, just in your own time and at your own pace. So you may want to move at a very slow pace in that rotation. Again, just connecting in to the emotion, back to that affirmation. How does it feel to experience that feeling through the movement? My hip is clunking so badly. And just don't forget to reverse. When you've done both sufficiently, just hugging your knees into your chest. You can rock side to side here. And then if you wish, you can just take both knees together and rotate at your hip joint. You can have them rotating in opposite directions. You can have them rotating in the same direction. Just whatever feels comfortable. Just rotating around that joint. And then when you're ready, just reaching up to hold the inner arches of your feet, if you can reach them. If you can't, just holding onto your ankles and just taking yourself into that happy baby posture and just really grounding down through the base of your spine, just to make sure that you're not kind of arching up. And then just, you can move if you want to by rocking side to side. That feels comfortable. Feels like the right thing to do. You can do a bit more movement on your hips. You can stretch your legs if that's comfortable. You can hold behind your thighs if that's comfortable, just whatever works. You're just focusing on that hip area. And then coming to bring the soles of your feet together and just bringing them down to the floor and just resting for a short time in that sort of butterfly leg position, but laid out to the side. And if this is too much for your legs, then just put something under each knee just to support you if it feels like it's too much of a stretch on your inner thigh. You're just opening up the pelvis and having your foot licked by Guinness is obviously optional. And I want you just to breathe here. And if it feels nice, just breathe a little bit more deeply. Sending your breath down into that pelvis, the hips. This is ridiculous. I've got 2 chihuahuas licking me. Come here. Stop it. Stop. And then when you're sufficiently satisfied with that pose, just helping your knees come up together, pushing them together. Maybe just giving your legs a little bit of a shake, nothing too vigorous. Stop it. And then we're just going to come up to sitting. However, is the best way for you to come up to sitting. And if you take your right leg in front of you into your kind of what we're going to basically, I think if we start off without going to full pigeon, so we're going to start just by having our leg out in front of us. So just allowing our leg to relax, and then bringing this one into that sort of crossed position behind as far as it will go, just like a, doesn't have to, you don't have to sit on it or anything, but just in that, and just sitting upright. And then when you're ready and you feel you want to, just moving yourself into your pigeon. And getting yourself into a comfortable position. So whatever feels right for you today. So that could be holding yourself up and just stretching out more, could be perhaps more focus on the hip flexor, or it could be that you drop down onto your elbows. And then just sending your breath into your parts of your body that are feeling this stretch. And again, the invitation is here to reconnect back to that affirmation, that emotion, and just see how it feels. And again, just drawing your attention to the grounded nature of this posture. The connection you have to the earth, the safety that the groundedness offers you. To feel that emotion. And then whenever you're ready, just coming up and switching over to the other leg. Again, just maybe starting off in that slightly different pose. So just allowing yourself to sit in that position. And then when you're ready, making your way into pigeon. Again, just focusing on what feels right on this side. So if this side feels different and it feels comfortable to be more upright, then stay upright. If it feels okay to come down, come down, but just connecting. And then breathe into that space where your breath is required, and only you'll really know where that is. And slowly returning up, bringing your legs back, your knees underneath you, and now going for a nice stretch back into child's pose. And we've just done quite a lot of hip work, so you might notice a bit of a difference in child's pose. Perhaps you activated your hips a little bit more, so you might notice that this feels more present is probably a best way of putting it. So now coming up to your knees, coming forward onto your hands, and if you are feeling able today, just coming up into a downward facing dog, and really again focusing on the hip position, the way it feels in your hips as you lift your hips up and back. And if the downward dog is too much, then just come onto your knees and kind of come into that high knee puppy posture. So now, if you're still in your downward dog, just stepping your right leg through, dropping your left knee down, just coming up into a low lunge. And then placing your left hand on your right knee, and then coming round into a twist, so you can almost take your arm round if you want to and just place it on your back. And then coming back to the middle and bringing your toes, curling them up. Rolling back through, and then you can bring your right leg back, and if you want to go into another downward facing dog to step your left toes through, you can, and if you don't want to, just bring your left leg through. Just checking in with this side, then coming up nice and tall, placing your right hand on the opposite side of your leg, and just coming into a twist on this side. And then coming back around to the middle and pointing your toes up and just straightening as best you can. Don't have to straighten it perfectly, it's just the movement is to work to straighten. It's probably a better way of doing it. Bringing your toes up. Your leg can be bent just to stretch out the back of your leg. And then bringing your leg back in. And then returning to sit back with your toes together. I think I've got a hole in my leggings. And now, if you haven't got your eyes shut, just returning to having your eyes shut. And coming to focus back on your affirmation that you began with, or that we began with, and now just using that groundedness that you have through your sit bones, through your feet, and also the fact that we kind of drew that line around our body in space, so there are boundaries, if that makes sense. Just really focusing in on that emotion and seeing how it feels now within your body. Is it still the same? Is it stronger? Is it weaker? Is it completely different emotion? Then bringing your knees together, straightening your legs out in front. Crossing your right leg over your left and just coming into a twist again. And when you've sufficiently dealt with that side and how it needs to feel, just crossing the other leg over and twisting around to the other side. And crossing your legs. And now coming slowly onto your back, coming to lay down if you can, because you haven't got a chihuahua in your way. Come on. And just taking your knees from side to side, just to loosen off your back, or just work that one last time kind of through the pelvic area. If you want to do any more of those leg rotations here, you can. Just a bit of an opportunity to move through any movement that feels like it needs to happen before we come to rest. And now, when you're ready, just moving into that position of rest. And so now is the time to connect into your body and how it feels after that practice. And so the invitation today is to now begin to let that emotion, that affirmation you've been working on, you've been experiencing, or you've just been taking some time to notice, flow. Flow will mean different things to you than to anybody else. So there is no right or wrong here. There is no how should I be doing this? Coming back to our practice last week. Just seeing what flowing emotion feels like for you. And as we move through our body scanning, body awareness, placing awareness practice, I would like or invite you to use awareness as a sense of feeling. So turning that physical placement, that physical awareness into more of a emotional thing. And if you're thinking, I have no idea what you're on about, doesn't matter. Just do whatever you need to do. Do whatever I'm suggesting, how that comes to you, how that works for you. So starting at the crown of the head and all in the head, where all that intellectualization comes from. All the thought, all the busyness, the order. Just placing your awareness at the crown of the head and then moving into the center of the brain and the front of the brain, and the right hand side of the brain, and the left hand side of the brain, back of the brain, and then to the center and the front and the left side and the right side and the back of the brain. And then moving back to the crown of the head, the middle of the forehead, and the bridge of the nose, and the tip of the nose, and the mouth, and the chin. And then coming back through the mouth, the tip of the nose, the bridge of the nose, to the center of the forehead, and then the right hand temple, the right cheek, the right side of the jaw, the chin, the left hand side of the jaw, the left cheek, the left temple, the middle of the forehead, right eye, the right nostril, the left nostril, the left eye, in the middle of the forehead, back down through the bridge of the nose, the tip of the nose, and the mouth, and the chin. Moving round to the back of the skull and back into the back of the brain, the front of the brain, and the middle of the brain, and the back of the brain, and then back out to the back of the skull, and moving round to the throat, and down to the chest and across to the right hand shoulder, the top of the right arm, the elbow, the bottom of the right arm, the right wrist, the right hand, the thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and the little finger. Palm of the hand, right wrist, bottom of the right arm, right elbow, the top of the right arm, the right shoulder, the centre, the chest, and the left shoulder, the top of the left arm, and the left elbow, the bottom of the left arm, the left wrist, the left hand, the thumb, the index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and the little finger, palm of the left hand, the left wrist, bottom of the left arm, the left elbow, the top of the left arm, the left shoulder, the centre of the chest, and just pausing in the centre of the chest. And then moving down through the rib cage to the navel, and into the pelvis, and the right hip, and the right thigh, right knee, right shin, right ankle, top of the right foot, the thumb, the toe, second toe, third, fourth, and the little toe, the sole of the right foot, back to the right ankle, the right calf, the back of the right knee, back of the right thigh, the right bum cheek, moving across through the pelvic floor to the left hip, the left thigh, the left knee, the left shin, the left ankle, the top of the left foot, the big toe, second toe, third, fourth, and the little toe, the sole of the left foot, back of the left ankle, the left calf, back of the left knee, back of the left thigh, left bum cheek, and the pelvic floor, and the pelvic space, and the navel, and the rib cage, and coming to rest in the centre of the chest, in the heart centre. And just returning our thoughts back to our emotions. So the invitation is to become aware of our emotion. To notice it when it arises and to spend some time with it. And to maybe have a go at giving it a name. And once we've given it a name, and we begin to understand how we feel, being comfortable in our perceived discomfort. It's okay to feel happy. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. And it's okay just to feel. And so returning back to that emotion that we were feeling earlier, or that we were focusing on earlier, I want you to visualize it as a thing. And it might be very obvious to you what that is and how it comes into a physical manifestation of an object or something like that. Or it might just be that it's an orb or something, but just give it a colour and a form and something that you can hold. And then in your mind, I want you to hold it and sit with it. Knowing that you have the safety of the connection with the ground that's always there, that you can always return to if you feel overwhelmed. And now you have that emotion. It's a thing you can deal with, that you can touch and feel with safety. And I want you to now just imagine that object kind of dissipating into you. And now seeing it going from a much larger object into potentially thousands of mini pieces that, when taken in their own small being, are absolutely fine for you to allow to flow around your body. And you can practice moving from that physical large object to that fragmented feeling. And you can return to this perhaps whenever you feel something that you maybe can't name or can't shape via language. You can use your internal visualization to enable you to feel it. And so now, knowing that you have this practice installed inside of you and this emotion is now yours and you own it. And it's nobody else's, and it's no one else's to judge. It's just yours to take and own and shape and experience in a way that is uniquely yours. And so beginning to bring your attention to the truly grounded nature of your body as you lay on the floor, bringing your attention to the points of contact with the floor, using your visual field to bring yourself back to imagine that position that you are laying in on the floor. And then bringing your attention to your breath and allowing your breath now to maybe start to deepen and become more conscious. And as your breath becomes more conscious, you may notice that there is a feeling of needing to move, to begin to make movements with your parts of your body that have been still. So maybe your hands and your feet initially, moving on to your head. Just beginning to make your journey away from you're feeling and coming back into the realm where your emotion is safely held inside you and you are completely grounded and connected. So in your own time, just bringing yourself back around. And whenever you're ready, and it feels like the right time for you, bring yourself up to sitting, but there's no rush. And the invitation is to keep your eyes closed for as long as is necessary for you, and perhaps making the last thing you do just to gently open your eyes, and you can put your hands over your eyes and open your eyes with your hands covering your eyes before you take your hands away, if that's more comfortable. But thank you for joining me today, and I will see you all again very soon.